I never thought I'd be one of those men writing about betrayal on the internet. I used to think it only happened to people who ignore the obvious, the late-night texts, the sudden disinterest, the constant phone guarding. Turns out, I wasn't any different. The only thing separating me from those stories was time. Her name was Emily. We'd been together for almost 9 years, married for 4. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were stable, a kind of quiet, adult love. We had our routines. Friday takeout, Sunday hikes, shared grocery lists, morning coffee rituals. She'd laugh at my obsession with order. I'd tease her about her chronic lateness. It felt real, predictable, safe. About a year ago, I started noticing small things that didn't fit into that safety. They weren't dramatic, just small, almost invisible fractures. The kind you tell yourself not to overthink. She started staying later at work. She'd get home around 8, sometimes 9. Her excuse was always the same. Deadlines, new client, you know how it is. And I did know. She worked in marketing. Deadlines were part of the deal. Then her phone habits changed. Before, she'd leave it lying around everywhere. On the couch, on the kitchen counter, sometimes even in the bathroom when she showered. Suddenly, it was glued to her hand. If I so much as reached near it to move it off the table, she'd appear out of nowhere. Once, she even laughed nervously and said, "You're going to find all my secret memes." It was such a weird thing to say, but I brushed it off. I trusted her. We'd built a life together. I told myself she just valued her privacy, that maybe she was planning something, a surprise, even. The mind has a remarkable ability to rewrite reality when the alternative is heartbreak. It wasn't until I noticed a perfume that I couldn't explain. It wasn't hers. Emily's scent was always something light and floral. This one was heavier, muskier. It lingered on her clothes one night when she came home late. I asked her about it. She laughed, said one of her co-workers had spilled something on her jacket. I wanted to believe her so badly that I didn't even question how that made sense. Weeks passed. My unease grew. I started checking her social media, looking for signs, patterns. She'd stopped posting pictures of us months ago. Her captions had shifted from we to me. Little linguistic betrayals that most people wouldn't notice. But I did. I'm a data analyst. My brain is wired to see patterns, deviations, anomalies. So I started tracking, not in a creepy way, at least not at first. I just noted the time she said she'd be home versus when she actually was, the mileage on her car before and after work, the number of calls she got from unknown numbers. I created a spreadsheet, color-coded, time-stamped, objective. At the end of the month, the pattern was undeniable. On Thursdays, her commute took exactly 27 minutes longer than usual. Her text replies dropped by 63% during that window. Once, she even sent a message meant for someone else, a half sentence that read, "I missed last time too." When I confronted her about it, she played it off as a typo. "I was talking to my sister," she said. "You're overthinking things again." Overthinking. That was her favorite word for me. The following week, I decided to test something. I told her I had a late project and wouldn't be home until after midnight. She said she'd probably just go to bed early. But I didn't go to work. I waited in my car 2 blocks away from our house. Around 8:40, she left, dressed up, makeup on, the perfume again. She drove to a small Italian restaurant downtown. She wasn't alone. I watched her walk in and greet a man, tall, well-dressed, probably in his mid-30s. I recognized him immediately. His name was Daniel. He was her co-worker. I'd met him once at her office party. He'd shaken my hand with that too long kind of confidence. They didn't kiss right away, but I could see the intimacy, the body language, the subtle touches, the shared looks. It was enough. I didn't need a smoking gun. I sat there for over an hour, watching them talk, laugh, share a bottle of wine. My heart didn't break in one clean motion. It cracked slowly, like glass under pressure. I didn't go inside. I didn't confront them. I drove home, poured myself a drink, and stared at the spreadsheet on my computer screen. Every cell, every number, every timestamp, it all told the same story. she was cheating, and I had the data to prove it. That night, I made a new folder on my desktop. I titled it Project Closure, because if there's one thing I know how to do, it's finish what I start. The morning after I saw Emily with Daniel, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. It wasn't rage or heartbreak or even disbelief. It was order. For months, I had been gaslighting myself, convincing my own brain that the signs didn't mean what they obviously did. Now that the illusion was gone, everything felt painfully logical. The world snapped into focus. I didn't confront her. Not right away. Emotion-driven reactions are messy. They create noise, destroy leverage, and most importantly, they end things before you've gathered enough information. And I wanted information. So I began what I privately called the evidence phase. It started small. I backed up her phone to cloud, something I'd helped her set up years ago when she couldn't remember her Apple ID. I didn't have to hack anything. I just logged in from my computer and waited. Within 24 hours, the first messages appeared. Most of them were harmless, work-related chats, memes, random conversations. But then I found a contact named D. The messages were short, coded, but unmistakable. D. Lunch today or too risky? E. Let's do later. I miss you. D. I can't stop thinking about you last night. E. Stop. You'll make me smile like an idiot again. That was enough. Enough to destroy me emotionally, but also enough to fuel something else entirely. I didn't stop there. I checked timestamps, GPS metadata from photos, credit card statements. Each piece built a bigger picture. Hotel stays during business trips, Uber rides that ended blocks away from home, charges from restaurants we'd never visited together. I treated it like any other project at work. Define scope, collect data, analyze outcomes. I built a private document. Subjects, Emily, Daniel. Time frame, 3 months. Objective, identify behavioral patterns and vulnerabilities. It sounds detached now, maybe even psychotic, but at that point, detachment was survival. Emotion was noise, and I needed clarity. I also started playing my part. Perfectly. I smiled. I made dinner. I laughed at her jokes. When she asked about my day, I told her it was fine. I acted like a husband who had no reason to suspect a thing, and she relaxed. Within 2 weeks, her guard was completely down. She'd text him while sitting next to me, assuming I was too busy watching TV to notice. I even caught her humming once while reading his messages. A quiet, happy little tune that used to be for me. One night, she came home from drinks with coworkers, smelling like that same perfume again. She took a shower, came to bed, and kissed me goodnight. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her breaths. I felt nothing. No hate, no love, just calculation. The next morning, I started phase 2 of my plan. At work, I began using a private burner email account to collect everything. Screenshots, message backups, photos, receipts. I also created a folder of red herrings. Fake documents suggesting I've been struggling financially, considering a job relocation, even seeing a therapist for depression. I wanted her to think I was distracted and weak. The more invisible I became, the freer she acted. She started working late 3 times a week. Once, she even left her phone unattended for 10 minutes while in the shower. That's when I found something unexpected. A note in her gallery. It was a list. A pro-con list. About me. Pros. Reliable. Smart. Good listener. Stable life. Cons. Boring. Emotionally distant. Predictable. That one word, predictable, stuck with me. She'd always said it jokingly, but now I realized it was how she justified what she was doing. In her mind, I had become a routine, a safe harbor she could return to when her little storms passed. She thought I was predictable. That became the foundation of my revenge. I knew Daniel's type 2, ambitious, image-conscious, career-driven. He wasn't the kind of man who'd risk his reputation for a scandal. So I started gathering details about his personal life. LinkedIn gave me his employment timeline. Facebook showed me his family. Divorced, 1 daughter. I even found his condo's address through property records. Then I waited for the right moment to act. It came sooner than expected. Emily had an upcoming conference in Chicago, a 3-day trip. She told me it was all business. I nodded, smiled, kissed her goodbye at the airport, and then booked a flight for myself on the same day, same destination, 2 hours later. I didn't tell her. When I landed, I checked into a hotel across the street from hers. Through her phone's cloud sync, I knew she and Daniel were sharing a room. Room 1107, under his name. That night, I stood outside their hotel at 10:15 p.m., watching through the glass as they came down to the bar. They looked like any other couple, comfortable, familiar, a little too close for coworkers. I didn't take photos. I didn't need to. The proof was already digital, time-stamped, undeniable. I remember thinking how strange it was that betrayal looks so ordinary from the outside. No fireworks, no guilt on their faces, just two people smiling over drinks, as if they hadn't set fire to someone else's world. I stayed long enough to confirm what I already knew, then left. On the flight home, I drafted a document called the package. It contained everything, screenshots, logs, the pro-con list, the emails. But I didn't plan to use it yet. Timing was everything. When Emily came back 3 days later, she hugged me like nothing had happened. I hugged her back, memorizing the exact rhythm of her heartbeat. She had no idea that I'd already started rewriting the ending of our story. Not with rage, not with confrontation, but with precision, because if she wanted unpredictable, I'd give her that. By the time I reached what I privately call the execution phase, I had stopped feeling like a victim. If anything, I felt like an analyst closing a complex case, a man studying the aftermath of a system failure he now fully understood. Emily's betrayal had stopped being a tragedy. It was a data set, a set of choices that told me exactly who she was when no one was watching. So I stopped reacting and started planning. The first step was subtle: financial separation. We shared a joint account, but I handled most of our bills. I slowly redirected my paycheck into a new account under my name only, a quiet shift masked by payroll errors. I also rerouted all automatic payments so that her cards continued paying for household expenses while mine stayed untouched. She never noticed. The second step, documentation. I made sure every digital trace of her affair was backed up in multiple encrypted locations: local drives, cloud storage, even a USB hidden inside a hollowed-out book. Not because I planned to expose her publicly. That would be too crude. But because leverage is the one thing cheaters never think about until it's too late. Then came the psychological groundwork. I began changing small things, the kind of details that make someone question their perception of reality. I started leaving the house earlier, coming home later, claiming new projects at work. When she asked questions, I gave vague answers. She started looking at me differently, slightly nervous, like she couldn't quite read me anymore. That was intentional. She had spent months controlling the narrative. I was simply reclaiming authorship. Around that time, I also reached out to Daniel. Anonymously, I created a fake email address and sent him a message with a subject line: "You should know who she really goes home to." Attached was a single photo, Emily's wedding ring resting on our nightstand, time-stamped. No threats, no explanations, no follow-up, just ambiguity. 2 days later, Emily was unusually quiet. When I asked what was wrong, she said work had been stressful. I pretended to sympathize. I even made her tea. Then, for 2 weeks, I did nothing. I wanted the tension to breathe, to let paranoia eat away at her. And it worked. She became distant, cautious, irritable. She kept checking her phone like she was waiting for bad news. I waited patiently. Then I executed the final move. It began with an email sent to her company's HR department from my personal account. It contained a brief, factual report. This is not an accusation, but a disclosure. 2 employees, Emily last name and Daniel last name, have been engaging in a romantic relationship during work hours and business trips, as evidenced by the attached materials. I'm bringing this to your attention because it directly violates your professional conduct policy. No emotion, no revenge tone, just documentation and evidence. I include my name. But given the materials, hotel receipts, timestamp photos, chat logs, they didn't have to guess. 2 days later, Daniel resigned. Personal reasons. Emily wasn't fired, but she was reassigned, demoted to a less visible role, with less travel and fewer clients. She came home one evening with red eyes and said, "They think I broke some policy. Someone sent them lies." I just nodded. "That's awful," I said. "I'm sure it'll blow over." It didn't. The silence between us grew heavier. Meals became wordless. Nights colder. I knew she was trying to find a way to explain things without confessing. She probably wanted me to ask, to give her the opportunity to lie one last time. I didn't. Instead, I focused on the exit strategy. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer, finalized the paperwork, and printed copies of all relevant documents, including proof of her infidelity. In our state, that mattered in divorce proceedings. The night before I filed, she came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. She looked exhausted, pale, anxious, worn thin. She said, "We haven't really talked in a while. Are we okay?" I looked at her for a long time. There was a moment when I almost pitied her, the woman who once laughed at my terrible jokes and fell asleep on my shoulder during long car rides. But then I remembered the message thread labeled D. So I said calmly, "We were okay until you made a different choice." Her expression froze. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I just placed a printed copy of one of her messages on the counter, the one that read, "I wish I could wake up next to you every day instead of him." She didn't say anything. She just stood there, staring at it, her hands trembling slightly. I told her I'd be staying at a friend's place for a while and that she'd be hearing from my lawyer. She started crying, quietly, like someone who realized the story she'd written in her head had just been replaced with the truth. I left the house without looking back. In the following weeks, the divorce process was straightforward. I was methodical, unemotional, precise. She tried reaching out several times, long messages about regret, about making a mistake, about finding our way back. I didn't reply to a single one. Eventually, she sent one last email. It simply said, "You planned this, didn't you?" I read it twice, smiled faintly, and archived it. Because yes, I had. It wasn't revenge in the cinematic sense. There were no shouting matches, no dramatic confrontations. Just a quiet dismantling of the illusion she built. A reminder that some men don't explode, they calculate. Months later, I moved to a new city. I changed my number, deleted the old email address, and started over. I kept the folder Project Closure on an encrypted drive, not out of spite, but as a reminder of what denial costs, of how silence can be more powerful than rage. Sometimes when I think back, I don't even feel hatred anymore. Just a detached curiosity about how people justify betrayal to themselves. Maybe she thought I'd never find out. Maybe she thought I'd forgive her. Maybe she thought I was too predictable to fight back. She was wrong on all counts. Because the truth is, I didn't just catch her cheating. I audited her life and closed the account permanently.